Hello, everyone, and welcome. What lesson is this? To the 43rd lesson of A Course in Miracles. And we have so much wisdom, love, and light to share tonight, everyone. So the 43rd lesson of A Course in Miracles is God is my source. I cannot see apart from him. Uh, God is my source. I cannot see apart from him. And a portion of the text reads, you cannot see apart from God because you cannot be apart from God. So whatever you do in him, because whatever you think with his mind. And so that is a beautiful lesson. You cannot see apart from God because you cannot be apart from God. And again, Jesus is reiterating our connection with Source. We are individuations of God. As always, this lesson relates to this evening session. And I would like to begin this session with a question to the group and to the listeners at home to consider. The question is, if it were your job, right, to convince God that he or she is not God, what would you do? How would you accomplish that task? If you were given the task of convincing God that he or she is not God, what would you do? What would you say? How would you carry out that challenge? And everyone, mute yourselves unless you want to speak. If you want to speak, go ahead and unmute yourselves and let me know, what would you do? What impressions come up for you if you were tasked with that, if you were tasked with trying to convince God that he or she is in fact is not God? So what would y'all do?
So I would
Is,
make the
is
situation.
Jasmine?
Yeah.
Okay, Jasmine, what would you do? What would you do if it were your job to convince God he or she was not God?
This is morbid, but I would manipulate him, and I would make the situation out to seem that he's powerless and out of power and not in control of any situation.
Wow. So manipulation, you would make him feel like he was powerless. Those are very good. How would you do that? Do you know how you would do that?
I would just be like I would just be things are out of your control. Like if you were truly God, wouldn't you be able to control things? Like you're powerless, you can't even do yada yada yada. You're just in the motions and you need someone to save you.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. That would be very effective. That would be very effective. Thank you, Jasmine. Does anybody else have anything that comes to them in terms of, you know what, if that was my only task, what would I do? What would I say? How would that look like if I wanted to convince God that he or she was not God?
Hi. I would
Was this Khadidra?
yes,
Hi, Khadidra.
Khadidra and Zoe.
Okay,
Um
Zoe.
I would tell God that he's judged based on his physical appearance and
Mhm.
treated based on his physical appearance. Um Yeah, that's what came to me.
Wow.
Um,
So if
yeah,
he or she did not match the standards of beauty, if they were not
right.
tall
The
or
perceived standards of beauty, right?
yeah,
Then you'll be treated, judged, before you open your mouth in many cases.
wow. That's
So,
that's powerful and effective. Thank you so much, Khadija.
mhm.
Thank you, thank you. So, do we have anyone else? We're not going to belabor this, but I just wanted to kind of get the impressions of the audience. Rebecca, you want to say something?
I find it curious that both the last answers are exactly what's been done to us as, gods. If you look at yourself as God,
Yes,
that's exactly what's been done to us in our culture my
yes,
whole life. You don't fit the standard of beauty, the manipulation,
yes.
that we're powerless.
Yeah,
That's what comes to
absolutely.
mind.
That's absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Rebecca. And that is definitely the point that we're making, right? It has been done to us and more. It has been done to us and more. So when I thought about this, um, I was thinking if it were our job to convince God that he or she were not God, first you would ensure that God was born into a family of unconscious parents, right? Because that's where it would begin, right? Parents who would not know who they are, who have been conditioned into smallness themselves. So, how can you teach what you do not have? How can you teach what you do not know? So, if there are parents who do not know the truth themselves, of course, they will raise that God into that same smallness. And in that ignorance, they will raise their children, and they may say things like, children should be seen and not heard, or they may allow even religious leaders to tell their beautiful children that they were born in sin, and they, are as filthy as rags to God, that God is outside of them, God is a perfect entity outside of them. If we were tasked to convince God that he or she were not God, we would ensure that through social conditioning, deception, and control, that the parents of God would have their own unhealed beliefs and experiences and would raise their children in that ignorance, that they would not have the knowledge to tell their sons and daughters who they are, that they share, in fact, source energy. They wouldn't be able to share that with them. They would not be able to tell them that they are divine beings of love and light. So from the beginning, right, God would grow up not knowing, right? If it were our job to convince God that he or she would not God, we would not wait for the birth of that powerful being to start implementing our plan. We would be proactive in making sure that we from before they're even born, that we begin our agenda of keeping that individuation of God away from his or her own power and truth. How would we do that? One of the ways that we would do that is, and I'm going to remind everyone to please stay muted. One of the ways that we would do that is by strongly encouraging their mother to drink fluoridated water. That by drinking fluoridated water while she's carrying her unborn baby, that this will ensure that that baby has nice, strong teeth. And so that mother to be would be strongly encouraged to make sure she's drinking fluoridated water. We would understand the incredible pressures that society puts on women to be a good mother. And in that expectation, she would do everything that is recommended to her by others. And you would leverage that conditioning by telling the mother to be that by drinking this fluoridated water, right, her baby will get the very best chance of not having cavities and having strong teeth. However, you would not tell her that fluoride has nothing to do with healthy teeth, even though it's a belief that's widely held. You would also keep secret that not only does fluoride not build strong teeth, it does, however, close and calcify the third eye, which is located in the forehead in between the eyes. You would know that this is the center for intuition, mental strength, and spiritual vision. And by doing this, you would attempt to close that baby's connection with his or her source before it is even born. You would not stop there, though. If it were your job to convince God that he or she were not God, you would mandate that a grueling schedule of injections be pumped into the bodies of these powerful beings while they're still babies, as early as 12 hours old after their birth, all in the name of keeping them healthy from illness, even though you would secretly know that the loving intentions of those who initiated this inoculation program to protect people from disease had long since been corrupted, and that there is now a nefarious agenda with the inoculation program, and that many poisonous substances have been added to these injections, which would further tamper with the natural energy systems they were born with. You would wish to disrupt the divine energy chakras given to them by God himself. We would also understand that the first 7 years of a child's life are the most formative of their personality. So you would begin their conditioning programs early by requiring that they enter the school system very young, where they would then be taught by teachers who themselves are unconscious. And this early conditioning program is where many of the children experience smallness, shame, and humiliation. You would understand that their free will and ability to choose will often be overrode by this unloving system. You would offer this education system for free and would shame parents who do not wish to participate in this program by labeling them bad parents. You would begin, if it were your job to convince God that he or she were not God, you would begin their lifelong training, which will carry them well into adulthood, of sitting in buildings for long hours, limiting their ability to interact with nature, frowning upon their independent thinking, discouraging their natural creative process by punishing behaviors such as daydreaming and freehand drawing or even singing, being sure to keep them on task and in a low vibration. While at school, you would ensure that the curriculum includes subjects such as world history, which painstakingly teaches them about wars and problem solving through violence. While absent in the curriculum would be the basic truths that you would withhold from the masses, truths that are essential for every kindergartner to know, such as how to interpret their feelings, that they are impressions from their souls, these feelings, that they are not to be ignored or overrode. Truths about how the universe works, that as God, our thoughts, speech, and actions are creative and therefore generate our experiences. You would withhold basic knowledge that, if disclosed, would free the people, such as how to consciously create a happy dream instead of suffering. Truths about the dynamic and transformative power of love, that forgiveness releases the cycle of karma, that we are all one, in fact, that we all come from the same source, and to hurt another is to hurt yourself. We would withhold all these wonderful gems of knowledge, keeping that God ignorant. If we wanted to convince God that he or she is not God, we would do all these things and more. We would discourage psychic abilities as sacrilegious because, well, we would not want these beings to connect with God themselves. We would want them to keep separate from their creator. We would ensure that every home has a television in it, so that these souls would constantly see images of violence, revenge, and competition. We would use these black screens to pump a continuous stream of fear, misinformation, and control. We would know that the horror movies stay within the psyche of the people for the rest of their lives, and that the ego records these images and saves them for a future moment of fear. We would know that we could orchestrate the actions and reactions of these gods by producing storylines and outcomes on these black boxes that become a script for them to follow. So if we have a movie with a theme based on revenge, these powerful beings absorbing that movie in a passive state will then refer back to that training if they were ever in that situation. We would know that it seems harmless, right? All in the name of entertainment, but that these are creative beings and they're powerful. Though they don't know, we would. So through the use of fear and the misuse of trust, we would get these beings to do all kinds of things that do not resonate with them. The black screens and the pressure to comply will get them to override their own internal guidance system. If we were tasked with convincing God that he or she is not God, we would introduce poisons into their food systems so that they do not have an opportunity to benefit from the nourishment and uploads of an organic fruit or vegetable grown under the sun. We would try to keep them small by reminding them that we can take their jobs away from them anytime we want. Though secretly we would be horrified at the thought that these gods may one day decide to make their own money through entrepreneurship. We would have many meetings and we would do countless things in secret. We would use their own power and compliance of the people against them. We would do all this with the full knowledge that one day, in spite of all our efforts, our money, and our energy, that one day these beings may wake up to their truth. There's always that possibility. We would know full well that they could come across a book or have a conversation or have a near-death experience or have a painful event that will wake them up to who they are. We would know that these beings are as wild, beautiful tigers who have been domesticated and therefore have forgotten their power. We would know the power of these godlike beings, even if they don't. And we will also be painfully aware that even though they have forgotten, they are still God nonetheless. Their forgetfulness does not make them lose their inheritance of being God. And this, my brothers and sisters, this, sons and daughters of God, has been done to every one of us. Since birth, since before our birth, there are beings, some human, some low vibrational extraterrestrials, who have plotted and planned ways to keep us disconnected from our true divinity. And they are hoping that we never wake up and realize that we have been in an abusive relationship and didn't even know it. These are the ways that we have been convinced that we are not God. And this is why when somebody speaks the truth sounds like a lie. The truth sounds absurd. The truth sounds sacrilegious, but it is the truth. We've been lied to so much that the truth sounds like a lie. But now is the time to recognize our truth, everyone. Now is the time to recognize our truth. So who are these beings that Loretta keeps talking about, you ask? Who are these powers who seem to have so much information about us? Who knows our power even if we don't? Who uses our own creativity against us? Who are they? Well, this conditioning into smallness has been happening for centuries. And I'm going to let Jesus explain who they are in his own words from his book, Jesus, My Autobiography, one of my favorites. I'm going to read from the paragraph titled The Nefarious Vibration of the Church. And it's on pages 210 through 212 of this book. So I'm going to read Jesus' very powerful description of what he experienced and what we experience. So on 210, it says, throughout your history, the church has punished capitally and with great cruelty anybody who dabbled in anything that was deemed the church's territory. In the early phases of the church, there was a great understanding of the power that I wielded in my incarnation. Again, this is Jesus. There were beings who witnessed me heal others. There were beings who witnessed miracles that I performed. And this brought home to them the incredible power that was contained within my teachings. Many of these beings would listen to me preach, but they were not listening to the preaching that you see in your Bible, the edited and dumbed down teachings, ones that have eliminated all the truthful lessons of divine power, your sacred nature, your divine nature, and your amazing ability to create your own experience. These teachings were present when I was on the earth plane. So beings were able to hear what I was saying. And at times, this was very frightening to the powers of the time. They saw how people reacted to what I was doing. They saw the bodies being healed. They saw the resurrections that I accomplished. And they saw the transformation of the material world through this discipline, through this enlightened connection to truth and oneness. That is what I taught. I encouraged people to do the same thing that I was doing. Now, you must go back in time and imagine people who wielded power over ignorant and uneducated beings who were making a lot of money from this and who were reaping rewards of land, influence, and political power. They did not want this to change. So when they saw what I was teaching, it was imperative for them to stop me, which of course they did. This did not victimize me. I knew it was coming. As I told you in the story of my life, I knew that I was going to be taken out of the discussion in the way that I was. And I was prepared for it through many, many hours of teaching through the non-physical. The powers that be could not allow ordinary beings that were under their influence to access this energy. So prohibitions were made, but not immediately. These prohibitions were calculated over many, many decades, even centuries. And over time, these practices of meditation and of connecting with divine mind through the elevation of consciousness were forbidden. They were forbidden because they were powerful. They were forbidden because they undermined the absolute control that the leaders of that institution wanted to wield over ordinary beings. Of course, that is one of the things that have upset me so much over these centuries. But this teaching could not be brought forth in this time through this particular format, spoken word, because of the danger to beings. It is only in the past few decades that this kind of activity has been permitted in your society. The church has wielded great influence for a very, very long time. And you must remember that your institutions, your schools, your universities, and your social interactions are based on the church's prohibitions. You do not realize it anymore, but they are still profoundly in effect in your mind and in your collective consciousness. The terrors and the murders that were perpetuated by the church on anybody who dabbled in the non-physical, who entertained speaking in this kind of manner to beings who were out of time, out of the physical world, were so devastating that anybody who entertained this idea became terrified. This is what you are witnessing. Even as you read and listen to this material, even as you entertain this book's contents, you will have these fears arise because these fears have been fed. They've been so fed, and these fears have been so perpetuated. These fears have been inoculated, if you will, into your society. So the second you feel the slightest fear around this communication, many other thoughts of that vibration could tumble into your mind because you have tuned into that frequency, and it is a very powerful frequency. The church beings who orchestrated this prohibition understood vibrational medicine. vibrational tuning, if you will. Exactly, because that is what I was teaching. Many of these beings studied the material I taught. As they edited it, they had access to this material, and they used the knowledge that was contained within my teachings for nefarious purposes, for the ego's purposes, which were to control, limit, hurt, and make fear in the minds of the masses. So this is the history that you are faced with here in terms of these fears of possession. They have been taught to you relentlessly and with capital punishment as the consequences of not conforming. When you look at 2,000 years of this kind of teaching, you can understand that there is a profound and visceral reaction to anything that goes against what has been indoctrinated. You do not realize that you are still being indoctrinated. Now, the indoctrination has been taken over by what? By the movies, facilitated by the powers that be. And yes, there are powers that be who do not want you empowered, do not want you strong, do not want you focused, and do not want you wielding your divine mind for the purpose of loving communion with your brothers and sisters. Look around your world and see the separation. Look around your world and see the war. Look around your world and see the profits that are reaped from your hating each other, from the fear, the guns, the wars, the poverty, and these kinds of things. These are the consequences of ignorance. We do not want to offend you in any way, but you have been kept ignorant. You have been kept from your true nature, from your true divine nature. And I read that word from word, y'all, from Jesus, My Autobiography. So this is clear. These powers that be that were there when Jesus was here 2,000 years ago, they did not stop their agenda. They continued. But now it looks different. Now they control from different avenues, but the control is still there. So now that we know what has been done to make us forget, let's begin the process of remembering who we are. I invite everyone listening to this recording to begin doing the lessons of A Course in Miracles if you have not already started. And let's collectively begin reading this book called Making Love to God by Tina Spalding. This is the first in a series of books that Jesus channels through Tina Spalding. It's called Making Love to God, The Path to Divine Sex. These are not Tina's words, y'all, but wisdom channeled through her, much exactly like this other book, Jesus, My Autobiography. Wisdom channeled through her by Jesus and a group of high vibrational beings who call themselves Ananda, whose sole purpose is to assist us in our ascension and awakening process. I will also be reading this book myself, and I'm thinking maybe we can all meet virtually via Zoom and share what we are learning. If you're interested and you're listening online and would like to join, please message me, send me an email, and I would love for all of us to embark on this journey together. Now is the time to remember that we are in fact God. that individually and collectively we make up the body of God, and that we live on a free will planet, which means that nothing can be done to us that we do not allow. Any freedoms that have been taken away from us are done only through our own compliance. Our own power is being used against us. We have a choice. We always have a choice. So if you are listening to this video and it resonates with you, and you would like to break free from the chains of social conditioning, pray to God. Ask Jesus, God, your spirit guides. Yes, we all have angels and spirit guides around us at all times who have known us many lifetimes. And ask Source to help you to open your eyes to that which you are. This year, we will all wake up to who we are. We will all find information that will be disclosed to us, and we will be shocked. So let's get a hold of our minds now before we come across that information. Let's take our power back now. So if you do this, if you're open to it, and if we can read this book and talk about it and read other books, then I promise you, you will have a transformative experience within the next few weeks, months, and years that you will never forget. Your own vibration has brought you to this channel. You have brought forth the truth to yourself because you are ready. If you are not ready, you would not be here. Let's ascend together in love, my fellow light workers. Why else would we be here other than to wake up to who we are? I love you all, and that's what I have to share. Anybody can give me your impressions of what you heard, if you have anything more to say. But these are the ways, and many, many more. We could be here for hours. We could be here for hours talking about what has been done, what energies, what efforts, what monies that we have that has been extended to get us to stay in a state of amnesia to who we are. Much has been done. So, but we still are God. Did anybody else have anything to share? You don't have to, but that is the session. Hi, I'm how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I love that what you shared with the fluoride and how the pregnant mom should prep. I think that would be a very nice message to really share with people that are ready to have babies. Start from mom and then teach the young babies how to connect with their source energy.
Yes. Of course, this was information that I didn't learn until after I had been thinking I was doing the right thing, drinking fluoridated water. But when I found out that it really had nothing to do with teeth, I'm like, it just really opened my eyes to what is going, like that much effort is being put into.
Yeah.
It really is astounding to me, the amount of effort.
Right. It's all for money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we don't take that with us when we die.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Madison. Thank you for that.
Very nice message. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I love y'all. And that's
Love you. Thank you, Mom.
But that's it, y'all. It's 7:15. I don't want to hold y'all too long. Thank you everyone who was able to share their impressions. And if you could get this book, guys, just it is. So Tina has a series of books that kind of helps the ascension process. Well, that's channeled through her, and this is the first one. And I have not gotten an opportunity to read it. So so if anybody needs to figure out how to get it and or anything, just call me. But I thought it would be great if we could kind of read it together and just check in. I don't know how that would look. Maybe have another like session to talk. Thank you, Margaret. She said great job, Loretta. So anyway, I was thinking that would be really cool for us to do that collectively. But I love y'all. I love y'all. We are God, remember? We are God. So as God, go forth, light workers. And yes, I love y'all. And y'all have a good night.